My name is Rich Schmidt. We're here with Piper Underbrink and Ben Stalker. It is November 20th, 2025, and we're at Privé Vineyard in Newburgh. And thank you, Piper and Ben, for joining us today. Piper, we've spoken with you before, and we're going to catch up with you in a minute. Ben, we need some background on you. So let's ask you the big question, which is why wine?
Because my wife makes it. I really got into wine because of her. I have more than made up for my fair share of drinking the wine. Now that I've met Piper, we met about, 6 years ago now? Yeah,
2019.
Yeah, and her family is really into wine, and that's what kind of got me into it. So sharing her love for wine and winemaking has been a really amazing adventure.
Let's talk about life before all of that a little bit. Tell us about where you were born and raised and kind of your life before meeting Piper.
So born in Southern California, Newport Beach, and moved to Northern Wyoming when I was about 10, maybe 9 or 10. And that's where really home is for me now. My parents still live there. My sister moved back there with her family. And I went to school in Durango, Colorado, undergraduate in Durango, Colorado, a school called Fort Lewis, and started my design. I'm an architect now, or in training to become an architect now. And so did my undergrad there, also ran a bike shop, was part of the cycling team at Fort Lewis, and still I call that one of my homes. It's probably where most of my friends live there. Just an amazing community. And moved to Salt Lake after Durango, and was there for about 5 years. And at the end of kind of my time there, I met Piper. She was in Park City, and I was down in Salt Lake. And pretty quickly after meeting, we decided to embark on a very, very kind of unusual endeavor, but an amazing one at that. And it was coming out here to Privé. It was in the middle of the pandemic, and it was just kind of like, let's do this. We were stuck inside, and just like, let's become farmers. Let's start making wine. She had been wanting to make wine for a really long time, so we did it. And that kind of brings us up to where we're at now.
Before meeting Piper and her family, what was your kind of relationship with or knowledge of wine? Was it something you cared about? Was it something you knew much about?
It's something that I maybe wanted to know a little bit more about. I was never really all that interested in it. If anything, I was more interested in like nice whiskeys and like breweries and things like that. I probably had the equivalent of like 3 bottles of wine in my entire life up until I met Piper. But it's whiskey was more of a thing that I would explore, like, different types of whiskey and like Japanese whiskey and things like that. And was really just starting to get into that part of my life, I guess. And it's been really eye-opening to just see. I knew that wine was this really big. There's all these different wines from different places in the world, and getting to explore that these last few years has been incredible. It's even more than I thought it was. It's been amazing.
You mentioned career in design and architecture. Tell us a little bit about that. How did that become the path for you, and what has it been like so far?
So my father's an architect, and I have 3 sisters who are all very design focused. So it's kind of in our blood a little bit. And my mom, although she's not an architect, she assisted my dad throughout his career. So we're all very, very design focused family. And I've worked with my dad kind of off and on for the last, well, since I was in college, and finally decided about 8 years ago or so that I needed to go to architecture school, knowing that I had wanted to become an architect since I was in junior high, and just kind of, I guess, didn't want to directly follow in my dad's footsteps, but he drugged me back, and I knew the entire time that I was going to become an architect at some point in my life. So yeah, working with him has been fantastic. We work on projects, or we have worked on projects in Salt Lake City, and then also we have some projects out in Wyoming. It's been amazing to work directly right alongside him. He's been in the industry for probably like almost 50 years, and he has an amazing wealth of knowledge that I get to learn from. And so yeah, it's been an amazing journey.
Tell me about something you've worked on that you're particularly proud of or excited about.
The first project that my dad and I really worked on together was first large project, I guess, was up in Farmington, Utah, and it was at an amusement park of all places. But it was a beer garden that it was really amazing for us to work. So I owned a design firm in Salt Lake City with 2 other business partners, and we came up with this concept of this Bavarian style beer garden, and we got to bring in an architect, being my father, to be the architect of record on that. And so it was great to come up with this concept and then have my dad kind of do all the drawings for it. And that's what really inspired me to go back to architecture school. So yeah, that one, along with the ones that we're currently working on, are, that's the first major one. So it was really special to work with him on that, and it was a very, very successful project.
So Piper, catching up with you a little bit, tell us. We've spoken with you before. We're up to 2021 with your story. Tell us a little bit how. Briefly recap kind of how you got to Utah and how the 2 of you met.
Yeah, we came to Utah I came to Utah in 2015, so right out of undergrad, and was kind of working between Utah and Northern California, learning the wine industry, and then also being a ski bum and working in bars and restaurants and distilleries. And it was a really great way to cut my teeth in hospitality and then also learn the scientific and farming side of the wine industry. I knew when I was really young that I pretty much wanted to make wine and farm. And so I didn't know at the time that there's classes that you can go to for that. So my best guess at how to prepare myself was work in hospitality, work cellar jobs, and work in the vineyard. And so various ways I kind of pursued that throughout my 20s for the most part. I met Ben in 2019, like he said, in Salt Lake City, and we actually met on Hinge, a dating app. Coincidentally, it's the app that's meant to be deleted, so I think it did a good job. And coincidentally, now I know a lot of people who are married that met on Hinge, but at the time it felt kind of like a silly part of our story. But we met on Hinge, we started dating, and that was within 4 months of the pandemic, I would say. And so when the pandemic hit, my mom was diagnosed with uterine and ovarian cancer, like 2 weeks before the shutdown. And so she had surgery and started chemo and radiation right at basically the start of shutdown. And so Ben and I only been dating a few months, and we'd only been on a few dates. And I remember saying like, okay, like if you want to keep dating, we can't see anybody else, because I was caretaking my mom. And Ben was like, okay, I won't see anybody else, like meaning a COVID bubble or anything like that. And so you met my mom on Mother's Day, which was it's a memory I'll never forget, because we were cutting her hair in preparation for chemo the next day. And it was like such a poignant memory and like time for you to meet my family. And yeah, that was like March 15th. Week later, I flew out here to look at Privé and called Ben and said, I know again we haven't been dating that long, But and we had talked that I really wanted to make wine and come to Oregon, but it was kind of this like, I want to make wine and move to Oregon, and there was no concrete intent behind it. And so when I called you and said, I think that this is our place, you were like, oh, well, great, because I applied to the University of Oregon and I got in. So I was like, perfect. I didn't even know you had applied. And so, yeah, it was pretty serendipitous. And so we closed on the property in June. We moved out here in early August of 2020. And yeah, we'd only been dating like 8 months at that point. But I think COVID did that to you, kind of. It had this aura of like, if not now, when? And there's no time like the present, and seize the day mentality. And I think also once you've quarantined together, just the two of you for months, it's pretty obvious if it's like gonna work out or not really quickly. And we just liked each other more every day, considering we knew no one else and interacted with nobody else. I was like, there's something to this. So that's how we got to Oregon. And yeah, we've been here ever since. In 2021, we ended up buying another property that is called West Wind Vineyard. It's out in Ribbon Ridge. It was originally owned and planted by Cody and Marquis Wright of Purple Hands and Hawk and Lene. And when we bought that property, we ended up having the opportunity to start our own brand, our Love Fern. And not that Privé isn't our Love Fern, it's just that it was someone else's dream and someone else's brainchild, and a husband and wife built it out of their love for one another, which is a beautiful thing that we get to honor and carry on, but isn't our love story. So it's really special to get to have a project that we worked on together. And I think it's like such a beautiful marriage of your artistic philosophy and background and my winemaking. And it's just this really cool amalgamation of our lives, which is really special. Yeah.
You mentioned coming out here and seeing the property in 2020. Tell me about why this space? Why did you see it and think this needed to be something you did?
Yeah, well, shopping for vineyards is not really, or wine brands and vineyards, it's not really like Zillow is your go-to place, or like Redfin. You're not like on there putting in like 2 bedrooms and 10 acres of vines specifically planted in the 70s. And that doesn't really exist. So we didn't know a single person out here. Ben had never been anywhere outside of Portland, except maybe Bend.
Yeah, Bend a few times.
And I had never left Portland either. And so I've been to Allison once for an overnight, but we didn't know anyone here. And so it was hard to find vineyards by word of mouth when you don't know anybody to ask. So when I had actually come out here and stayed at the Allison for an overnight, was brought out by a company I worked for at the time in my mid-20s, and I met Ken and Celia Austin, and we became friends. And still to this day, they're good friends of ours. And I just emailed them because Zillow was not helping. And we had a very specific set of criteria. So we wanted a brand that didn't bear the founders' names so that we could continue it on. We wanted a small enough vineyard and a small enough operation that feasibly I could run it by myself with a little bit of help from Ben. And so not like a team of 30 people and 40 acres and all of this crazy quantity of brand and project and land. So we kind of gave them that criteria, and Tina and Mark Hammonds, who founded Privé Vineyard, had been looking to sell for a few years. And they were in their 70s, 60s?
I think, yeah, somewhere around there, yeah.
Yeah, so they were ready to retire. They were empty nesters. They had been in the vineyard fighting the good fight since the early 90s. And so I think that they were ready to do something else. And so I just called them on the phone, and I really liked Tina, and her philosophy and my philosophy are very similar. So we flew out here, and coincidentally it was the day that the world shut down. So I got off my flight at the Portland airport, and the Portland intercom said, it is very likely that there will be no more flights by tomorrow. So do with that what you will. And I was supposed to be here for 2 nights, and I went to the ticket counter and said, when's the next flight to Salt Lake? And they're like, you have 4 hours. So I drove out here, met Tina and Mark, had a glass of wine, and went back to the airport. Yeah, so like almost sight unseen, but not quite. Which is wild. Ben definitely never saw it.
No, yeah.
You saw it on the U-Haul for the first time driving up the driveway.
Yeah, and you didn't really even take pictures. I'm like,
I took no pictures.
I'd like to know where I'm going, but yeah.
I'm sorry, that was my fault. I still don't take pictures. Like we'll go look at a property or like a building, or I'll go see like a cool architectural design thing that you've wanted to see for a long time and couldn't go or whatever, and I never take pictures. I forget.
Yeah, that's all right.
It was also a lot going on that day.
Yeah, fair enough.
My defense. But yeah, it was wild, a wild time to do that. And then it was the fires. Then we were here for 2 weeks, and the fires hit. We like weren't even unpacked, which was kind of convenient because there was a fire up on Trail Mountain, and people were worried that we would be evacuated. And I was like, well, cars are still packed, so I guess we'll just get in, and I don't know where we'll go, but all of our belongings are still in the car, so it's going to be an easy, evacuation. But yeah, kind of literal trial by fire. Yeah, but that's farming. In general, I think, trial by fire.
Just a great introduction to the whole thing, 2020 was a great introduction to all the challenges. Tell me about your expectations for both. This question for both of you. Expectations when you got here in 2020, taking over an existing brand, starting to work on a vineyard. What did you not know yet? What were the biggest challenges for the first couple of years?
You want me to go?
Yeah, you go first.
Yeah. Well, I was going into it knowing full well that I had no idea like how to make wine, but I really loved that part of it, and I'm a pretty adventurous person, just like very I'll say yes, like I just want to go and try things out. So it was a fantastic experience of like, this is how I've never been on a sorting line. I didn't know anything about like when you're pulling in fruit or like what that even looked like. So it was this great opportunity to see the pickers running up the rows. I was just fascinated by everything that was happening. And it did make it kind of crazy because the first year we were harvesting in like just heavy smoke. And so it made the experience even more kind of surreal because I don't know if you remember that orange smoke that was here, and you could not, like, we wouldn't be able to see the house. It's like 100 feet away, and it was just this crazy smoke that was just like descending on everybody. So that made it all the more memorable. But learning the whole winemaking aspect, like all of the different steps, and I think I knew that we were going to be farming a little bit. Luckily, this is a pretty great site to start. It's almost like a hobby type farm. It's about 2.5 acres or so of Pinot Noir. And, during that fire, or right before the fire, there was a big wind that came through that probably helped ignite the fire and broke a few of our end posts. And the old owner, Mark, he taught us how to do that. So it was just like going through all of these steps. There's always something that's broken that needs to be fixed. Yeah. And yeah, I think that has been just the story. Like, oh, there's a tree that falls down. We got to like chop up the tree in a very nice way that it doesn't disrupt the vines. And there's always those little things. But it's been really fascinating to learn all of these processes, and by no stretch am I an expert at any of them. Piper is much more of an expert at all of the things, but I really enjoy helping her out.
I think when we moved here, I was 27 when we bought Privé and moved here. So I think I knew that I didn't know a lot, and what I think if you would have asked me, because we were so newly dating, I think if you would have asked me, I'd have been like, I could do this, like Ben, it's great that Ben's here, but like I can probably do this. Now, knowing what I know now, there's no way that I would be where I am now, and we would be where we are now, and we would have the success that we have without both of us, because not like setting aside all the physical labor and the work, and you're an incredible mechanic and I am a terrible mechanic. And all of that stuff aside, just emotionally and mentally, having each other was so critical. I am a very type A person. I can be slightly rigid. I am very black and white and very analytical, which is really helpful in the cellar. And sometimes good in the vineyard, although that's a little bit more of a gray space. Ben is a lot more laid back than I am. And so, I like to think that I maybe would have gotten there over time by my own, but I get to have so many like peaceful, beautiful, enjoying years, enjoying what I'm doing, because Ben has helped me understand and see that, it's not so black and white. There's beautiful things that can happen even in the worst moments that I probably would not have been able to come to on my own, or at least not in this decade of my life. So that's really great. I mean, like one day I called you and I was crying and freaked out because it's our first big frost, and it was during bloom, and I was or bud break, and I was so stressed. And you were like, well, what, are you going to put a puffy coat on every vine? And I was like, no, that's dumb. And you were like, okay, well, that's what I mean. And I was like, oh yeah. So I think about that actually all the time when there's like weather that happens. It's like, well, I'm not going to put an umbrella over all the vines, so we're in it. And so that's something that I think about often, that I definitely at 27 thought that I could do everything on my own. And yeah, I could not. Also, like, my personality doesn't lend itself to being like a super great boss. And so you are like the most fun boss. And I think that our combo really works really well in that arena, which we didn't need at the time, but have since learned how to do.
I feel like that's just, it's just how well you can roll with the punches.
Yeah.
And kind of see glass half full on all of these things, because there's going to be weather events, there's going to be things that happen in the cellar, there's going to be economic downturns, there's going to be weather events, all these things, and it's just like you have to be able to work with it and do the best that you can. And if you're positive about it, number one, makes it a lot more fun.
Way more fun.
Yeah.
Significantly more fun.
And I think the product turns out better as well. So, yeah. Yeah,
that's hard to understand though, unless you have that mindset. So I'm really grateful that you helped me see that really early on. Mm-hmm. And I did an interview a month ago, and someone asked what is the philosophy behind my way of making wine, and how I pick decisions, and how I decide what gets what in the cellar. And his examples were very science driven and chemistry driven. And, I said, that's all well and great. And you got to have parameters for that. But harvest really becomes a game of logistics, and what you can accomplish in a day with the staff that you have, what you can accomplish in a day with your equipment, what doesn't break on a given day, whether we do everything in a non-temperature controlled building with no covered outdoor space in Oregon. So a lot of our harvest is dictated by logistics. And I think that surprises a lot of people because they just think you have your perfect, you get one shot every year and it's perfect every time. And it's not always. You have a full-time job, and you've had a full-time job for almost every year we've worked harvest, and you're a critical, integral part of every harvest day. So if you have a big meeting, we don't pick that day for the most part, because your expertise and your time is critical to the production of the fruit. And so it's that's just the way the cookie crumbles. You're welcome. Well, we really have to have you there because you make sure all the shit runs.
Yeah.
Which is critical.
Becoming less and less so. We've been updating our equipment, but
even brand new equipment, it just breaks.
Yeah.
It just does. That's just how it works. And it's all you made in Europe. It's all the manuals are in another language.
Yeah.
So yeah, they just break.
I'm writing down my $1 million idea of puffy coats for vines.
We actually used to use, this is really funny. So I worked at a distillery when I lived in Utah, and I distilled whiskey mostly bourbon, single malt, and some gin. And the Angel's share, the evaporated liquid out of the barrel, is way, way higher because we were at 7,500 feet elevation in a like high alpine desert in Park City. And so the evaporation contingency is really big. And so I worked, the guy who owned the company was a bit of a tinkerer, and he like made they were like a cross between a sleeping bag and a like what you see people put on at, like after running an ultra marathon.
Oh yeah.
Those reflective blankets on barrels, and it did help quite a bit. So there's maybe a market. I don't know. You can do like one long pull on one. But yeah.
Ingenuity, I love that. So let's talk about, before we get to the new brand, let's talk about Privé a little bit, because when we last spoke, Privé was what you were working on and what you had at the moment. You mentioned kind of, I like your description of it. You took over someone else's dream, you took over someone else's project. Tell me about that on a kind of, I guess kind of an emotional level, kind of a mental level. How do you approach that kind of project? How did you approach it in the early days? And what have you done with Privé in the years since we spoke last?
Well, I think if I had a do-over, I would be less worried about stepping on other people's emotions. I was very cautious about making any changes at all for a long time. And really it took Ben being like, no, like, this is your brand. And I think after the years now, I realized that I'm sure I had some imposter syndrome, and I was just like, because for a long time I was like, you can't call me a winemaker, and Ben's like, well, what do I call you? Like, that's what? And so he'd introduce me to people as like, this is my girlfriend Piper, and she works in the wine industry, and she makes wine, but she's not a winemaker. and so I think with that, having some vintages under my belt, feeling more confident in my role in my space allowed me to like start making decisions and changes. I think we were very cautious, especially too because there had been a lot of brands changing hands in the Willamette Valley leading up to when we came in 2020, and then kind of through our takeover time, like 2020, 2021, even into 2022. And some were done really well and some were not done so well on the consumer side. And we were getting a lot of feedback about that. We were also very young, like I was 27, you were 32. And I think the bulk of the Privé clientele was 50 plus. And so there was a lot of being very gentle about the way that we handled the brand, because we didn't, we were young and we hadn't earned their respect or trust yet. And so it took a little bit of time. But I think where we really kicked it off was we just did all new labels. Mm-hmm. You were like, I'm doing all new labels. And then they all looked different. And then I was like, well, we're in it, so we might as well make some wine adjustments. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And the wines are still made in the exact same way and theory and philosophy as the original founder and winemaker, Tina. But we've added some vineyards, we've added a white wine. Privé never had a white wine before. And so I think with those additions, we've been able to kind of fully round out the portfolio a little bit. But yeah, it's a brand I love making because I get to pay homage to, I call it old school Oregon when I describe Privé to people in the market. I don't say Burgundian style. That isn't my favorite term to talk about in terms of Oregon stylistically. I think there's actually quite a lot of differences, and I understand why it was important at the time. And I think now it's like, no, Oregon is an amazing place with amazing people making incredible wine. We should own that and stand in that power. And so I say like old school Oregon winemaking for what Privé is, and it's a special, I feel very honored that I get to carry that onward for people. Yeah.
So Ben, you played a big role in that with your kind of redesign and kind of revamp. Tell me about approaching a wine label. What was the project like?
Well, just the way that we didn't want to kind of like ruffle any feathers. It was with Privé, it was very much kind of like make the label bring it up to modern times, but honoring the past. So it was very much like inspired by kind of traditional French labels. I actually had one of my really good architecture friends he actually sketched out this building that we're currently sitting in. He's a really he was an artist before and then became an architect after. And so it's really just like, how do we bring this up to, 2000, whatever, 21, but also honor the legacy. And that's kind of our way of looking at the wine too, is just like, how do we honor what Tina and Mark have built, the winemaking style that they really loved, add our own influence into it, but it is this very traditional brand. So yeah, that's kind of where the label came in.
You mentioned kind of honoring and sort of theory, philosophy, style. Tell me a little bit about the style that Privé was sort of created in and what you've tried to do to carry that on.
Yeah, so Privé is built to be aged. It's a wine that as a winemaker, I make all my pick decisions, make all my winemaking decisions, farm all the vineyards in a way that is going to lead to a wine that can be laid down for 8 to 10 years, which is very in line with very traditional Oregon winemaking. When we first moved here, it was all about longevity, and that was the topic of conversation for wines. So longevity. I also honor place. Like we're in a higher acid zone, so we pick to honor that for sure. Everything's aged in oak, so no, as I call them, like new avant-garde stainless steel, clay, etc. Even though clay was like the original form of winemaking, but that's fine. No trendy, quote unquote, trendy ways of vessels. And everything is showcasing vineyards. So either block specific or vineyard specific. And for the most part, well, all the Pinot Noir is estate. And we do showcase a few really, really iconic Syrah vineyard and an iconic Chardonnay vineyard. And so it's definitely very important to us to source and focus on single vineyard, single block focused wines, which was really fun to be able to sit down in a tasting and try 3 wines from the same vineyard that are all separated by aspect or elevation and see drastic changes in the wine. So all the wines are made exactly the same so that you can see the differences in vineyard and site, microclimate, subclimate, things of that nature.
So you talked about West Wind Vineyard and the new project. So tell me about taking that on. Let's talk about first about sort of finding the vineyard, finding your site, deciding that was something you wanted to take on. Just take us through the process of that. 2021.
Do you want to tell how we found it, or you want me to tell how we found it?
Yeah.
Okay. So COVID, we moved here in COVID. We didn't know a single person. No family, no friends. So we did not have a COVID bubble. There was no way to make a COVID bubble because there was nowhere to go to meet other humans. So we would my husband Ben designed, refurbished a 1977 Volkswagen Peace bus that his family got when he was 3. And he restored the whole thing during COVID. And our date night would consist of taking the bus to Dairy Queen, going through the Dairy Queen drive-thru, getting a Blizzard, and then just driving around this place that we didn't know anything about. And we kept, we drive around Sealionne Mountains, Ribbon Ridge, kind of wherever, Dundee, wherever we went. And we could always kind of see this vineyard from pretty much anywhere you were at on Sealionne Mountain for the most part. And it's on Ribbon Ridge, it's east facing, it's this really cool point that kind of juts out into the corridor between Sealionne Mountains and Ribbon Ridge. And so we kept seeing it. We were both like very enamored by this property. And so we started asking around, and we got someone to show us, to get us like to meet the owner and all this stuff. And I had no idea, like shame on me, because I should have done more research about Oregon wine history before we moved here, but I was like, Pinot Noir, I love Pinot Noir, we're gonna move there. So we did, but we went and met Cody Wright and Marquis Wright and their kids, and we walked the whole vineyard, and we had this really beautiful rapport, and it was this wonderful back and forth, and when we got home later that day, I was like, you know, this person who showed us around the property kept being like, yeah, like the Cody. And I was like, what? And so I'm like, yeah, Cody, he's cool.
Nice, yeah.
And then we got home and Googled it, and I was like, oh, shoot. It's like Ken Wright's son, and he has these 2 iconic brands of his own, and he's been, you know, making waves in the Lima Valley for his whole life, essentially. And I was like, oh, wow, I'm really glad I didn't know that. I would never have like probably connected with him the way that I did, because I would have been way too intimidated. So we ended up doing a deal with him where he was my mentor still is my mentor, and we're close family friends. You were with him last night, and we have loved growing up watching their kids grow up, and they're an amazing family and an amazing team. And so coincidentally, it just happened to be this really beautiful kind of symbiotic situation in which we could bring in this 15-acre vineyard and not be on the hook for farming the whole thing, because at the time we were farming these 2 acres by ourselves. And so we didn't know anyone in the industry, so we didn't have like a good way of finding people to help us like we do now. So yeah, so it was really a beautiful opportunity for us. You know, Cody stayed farming the vineyard for 5 years. He mentored me in the vineyard and mentored me in the cellar. And it was this really, by the time, you know, the 5 years were up last year. And so this was the first year in 25 that we took on all the farming ourselves. And by that time, it's like we had a network in the Willamette Valley. We had a group of people whom we trusted and could go to for help, advice, and management. So it was we were so lucky to fall into such an incredible opportunity.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. He had planted it in, was it 16 and 17 that he planted it?
15, 16.
15, 16. So when we purchased it, they had not pulled any fruit off of it yet. So it was great to see kind of like, and we still had to trellis a little bit of it. So we got to get a little bit, we didn't plant anything, but we helped trellis the entire property, and we saw it on its, you know, first pick that it ever happened out there. And to have Cody with us kind of explaining all those things, it was just it's a bigger operation than what Privé is. And it was a really great stepping stone of like, we got Tina and Mark, the owners of Privé, help us along for a year, and then we're able to get Cody and Marquis to help us for the next 5 years, and it like just help us get up to the scale that we currently are. So yeah, very valuable. And
it's such a cool, I mean, I think, you know, everybody always talks about like how collaborative the Oregon wine industry is. And I think I didn't really know what to think about it originally because we moved here in COVID and we just didn't know anybody. But what I think is a really incredible thing is that it really is just families farming land. And so, you know, when we moved here, we both had been a huge part of other industries, and like you had worked for a bunch of design firms, you had owned design firms, you had owned bike shops, and I had worked in like acquisitions for cannabis companies. And so we had both worked in businesses and industries where it's not emotional and it's transactional. And so coming here, that was we still talk about it all the time. Like it's a very big switch because you still have to be somewhat transactional, right? Like these are your brands, this is how you feed your family. So there is a point where you have to protect that space. But like we ended up with this vineyard, which we are stewards of the land. That's how I feel about farming. And so we're just caretaking this space until, you know, the next person or family comes along. And Cody and Marquis brought both their kids home to that house. It was a very emotional attachment to that land. That's the first vineyard they ever planted by themselves and mapped out. And so it's a very emotional place that they have a lot of connection to on a deep level. And so I think there's the same thing for us, you know, where this young couple, we still weren't married yet, this young couple like coming in that wanted to, you know, maybe maybe we were a little more starry-eyed because we hadn't been through it yet, but we were like, oh, we want to bring our family here and we want to create our own brand and we want to, do all of these things very similar to what Cody and Marquis have done. And so I think for them, it was like they saw some of us in them and vice versa. And it's the same thing with Privé. It just feels like such a beautiful honor to be able to continue someone else's emotional love and dream and place. So I feel very honored. And I'm like so attached to West Wind. Oh my gosh, like way too attached. But I love it so much. I'm really attached to Privé too, but West Wind's, like Ben said, like we just had more of a hand in bringing the space up. And so, yeah.
So you found the space and you get the space. What was the plan at the time? Did you have the plan for a second brand? Did you have, what were you thinking once you acquired this vineyard?
Did we have a plan? I feel like I was just like, I love this place so much. And then but then that was the plan.
So we had kind of like ideas of what, like actually before we purchased Privé, we came up with the logo for Sealionne before and the name, yeah. Because it's the name Sealionne comes from, it's a boat manufacturer from the 30s called Sealionne, and the designer in me saw this beautiful wooden boat. We went out to Minnesota, that's where her family lives, and this boat was sitting in the water. It's a beautiful triple cockpit wooden boat. And the logo on it is very similar to the Sealionne logo. And so I kind of sketched it out, what this logo could be for a potential brand in the future.
But like not a wine brand.
No, just like,
we'd have a wine
just like a really beautiful logo.
Restaurant or something.
Yeah. And so then we, as soon as we got out to Oregon, we very quickly realized that, you can't really do this with 2 acres of land. So almost immediately we were like, okay, well, we got a pretty good hold of this, kind of. As good as we can, and understood how everything works. But then we were kind of looking around for something that we could add to our estate that would really anchor us a little bit more, so we wouldn't have to outsource for all the fruit. And so I think the idea of that we always had, but it happened a lot more quickly than we thought. And we knew that we would have a lot of fruit that came in. So that's kind of when we started. We just, basically hit fast forward on, do we want to make Privé like much larger, or do we want to keep it the way that it has always been and do something else? And that's what we ultimately did. Yeah.
I think that I really pushed for creating something separate because while I love making the Privé wines, they're the same. They're always the same. And they're always different flavor profile wise, and like the final product's always different because you have vintage variation. But the process of making the wine and farming the vineyards is all very similar. And we've been so fortunate and so lucky in our life to travel a lot. And so, I was always drinking, like loving Mediterranean white wines and all these other things. And we met Andrew Beckham, and we just fell in love because he's just so interesting and his knowledge is so diverse and vast that, we ended up buying some clay pots. But then because we drank way too much wine and spent like the whole day there, and then we left with 3 clay pots. And then it's like, what do you do with that? Like that doesn't fit. That they really transform the wines a lot, and that just doesn't work in the Privé lineup. So I think I was really looking for an outlet to play more and to be more creative and to trial things and just make like those last 2 years, actually, we've done extensive whole cluster trials. So we've made wines from the same block over 25, 30, 40, 55, 85, and 100% whole cluster. And so we have barrels in the cellar from 2 years that have like this crazy range. And so those wines will always, maybe they become their own thing, or maybe they get blended into the Sealionne wine, but that's the beauty of it, is that they can go somewhere, whereas for Privé, like it's no whole cluster and by design. And so I think I was really excited. Plus we were just starting to we got engaged and we were just starting our life together. And I was so excited to be able to have something with you that we created ourselves. And so I think it was like the perfect opportunity to create Sealionne.
So take me through you have a logo already, which is more than most people have, and you have a potential name. Tell me about putting it together and coming up with a look, coming up with a style, coming up with a way to present it to the world.
Yeah, so that was kind of my background, just working at design agencies. So I had a lot of that kind of just in my head, and the winemaking really influenced the way that the design of the branding and everything turned out, other than the logo. So we came up with the logo, and then for the rest of it, we wanted it to be kind of like this new, fresh approach. Definitely, it's different ways of making wine, so we wanted it to feel a little bit younger, I guess. So it's a lot more playful. The design of the bottles, or the labels on the bottles, it changes with every vintage, and so the artwork on the back of it is actually painted by my sister, and we commissioned her to do a painting based off of the way that the year kind of felt to us. So like in 22, it's more of like these orange and red colors because it was a little bit warmer, and this last year was a little bit cooler, and she has a very, very, she's kind of an abstract artist and has really beautiful pieces of art, so it's been really enjoyable to work with her and see how those vintages all lined up. Now we have 4 vintages of Sealionne, and they're just going to continue on and see her influence on the design as well. But yeah, it was definitely to keep it feeling really young, feeling really fresh, and more approachable to get potentially people that had never been in wine, like me, to be interested in it, and that it's not just the same old wine. There's like some, the influences of clay amphora and stainless steel, and there's a chillable Pinot Noir, and which is something that I didn't even know existed. And so yeah, it's like getting those people that had never even tried wine to feel like they could be accepted into this community.
Yeah, that was definitely the inspiration. Making wines, and obviously making it different than Privé. So making wines young, like approachable right out of the gate, that more of affordable wine set, because, we thought about what we would want to drink in our 20s and 30s. And the only reason we can kind of afford wine now is because most people just give it to us. But like if we had to go out and buy wine or not trade our own product for it, we couldn't afford to drink always like super beautiful wines every day of the week. And so, I think that, and like educating and getting people excited about wine. We talk a lot about when we visualize our tasting space, which is why our pop-up pavilion has been in an Airstream trailer out in the vineyard, is that we wanted it really to feel more like a brewery, in the sense that it's a space for community and a space where everybody can come together and create and share and relax, versus more of that traditional tasting experience, which is more one-on-one, more you're getting dressed up, you're going to a space, it's a little bit more classic, I guess. And, I was like, I love beer, but like, I don't always want to drink beer, but I want to go to like the beer vibe, right? And hang out. And so that's kind of what our goal has always been with Sealionne, is to demystify wine and try to use it as a platform to speak about and that's gotten crazier every year, but all of the things that we feel passionate about, like protecting our migrant workers and, demystifying wine and making everybody feel like they have a place in the wine industry and in the drinking, just to drink wine, that it's not exclusive, that it's something that everybody can enjoy, and, climate and all of those things. It's this it's this leaping off point to make everybody feel accepted and to bring up to have the hard conversations in a laid back space. Whereas Privé is much more like, we just drink really good wine. We don't talk about those things so much. Some things you have to, because we're on a vineyard, but.
Let's talk about the winemaking for a minute. You mentioned obviously this is a chance for you to play around a little bit, for you to try different things, different vessels, different varietals. What's the through line for you? What is if there's a way to describe the Sealionne wine, what is consistent for you across the different wines you're putting out?
Yeah, we make really racy wines. So we love high acid. Or I should say I love high acid, and you also like it? But yeah, high acid wines for sure. Like where there's nothing flabby in our cellar. We are, all of the wines we make are very electric and pretty fruit forward. Nothing too, like we're pretty soft in terms of like tannin. It's there, it's integrated, but nothing too heavy handed. Which helps lean into that whole like drink now, it doesn't have to be cellared 100 years kind of a thing. And yeah, acid is definitely my driving factor. I make all of my pick decisions on acid for the most part. Obviously you need to have balance and ripeness and fullness, but yeah, if it's a choice between like full-bodied wine and acid, you're getting the acid. We're going for the acid. So I would say like for Privé, there's more of an emphasis on structure, more of an emphasis on rounded mouthfeel, so that we have more ageability and so that we have more palatability, and maybe those wines, and because of that, those wines tend to be a bit more complex. But for Sealionne, we're just trying to make wines that we want to drink all the time, and help people feel like they can drink them, any day of the week. And so we also love food. We're both huge foodies. So high acid wines tend to do really well in a kitchen situation.
Tell me about your kind of maturation evolution as a winemaker. Obviously, you have many more vintages under your belt than the last time we spoke, and now you're making wines on a whole different kind of portfolio. So tell me about how you feel as a winemaker now. What have been the biggest sort of growth and confidence for you, or stylistic preferences for you as you look now versus when you started making wine?
Yeah, there's a few key things I think that happened. I started having vintages to share with other people and was getting real-time feedback, which, no one should ever stake their self-confidence on what other people think, but I do think that being able to have friends that make wine that I respect and honor and value their opinion, give feedback, has not only made me a better winemaker, but it has given me confidence to make different wines. Because it's given me confidence in my like basic ability of just like, we know how to do the basics, right? So there's a good jumping off point there. I also think like managing vineyards, bigger vineyards, full time, managing fruit buying operations, and that has really made me feel a lot more confident in my skill set. And also working out in the community. So being the president of the Sealionne Mountain Wine Growers was really informative. Not only did I get to meet and do I get to meet incredible people in the industry, I think it also, people being able to have a direct impact on my community has been really informative. In terms of my wine style, I think I am constantly tasting, constantly going out and tasting not only finished wines, but unfinished wines. And that comes from like making friends in the Valley, because the only way you're going to taste unfinished wines is by going to people's place of work and tasting them. And so I think getting to do that all the time has really helped me narrow in what my philosophy is, my focus is, and my goals are for myself as a winemaker. And it's been really amazing to have a partner who is just like you said, like you jump in both feet wholeheartedly every time. And so, you're my biggest cheerleader, and it gives me a lot of feel like I can stand in my power in the cellar because I know that you're going to back it up no matter what. And so I think all of those things have really shaped who I am as a winemaker. And finally, I would say we've had 5 vintages that are quote unquote unprecedented in Oregon wine history, as you would probably know. And I think for me, every vintage that we have something unprecedented happen, which has been every vintage I've made wine in Oregon, I just get more confident. And it's kind of like, oh, well, it'll never, I can do that, I can do anything. And it's like the next year, like, wow, now I can do that, I can do anything. And so I think that is also helpful to standing in your own power. Yeah, and as much as winemakers hate selling wine, I feel like in general, we all kind of hate that. Going out in the market and selling wine, as intense as it is, really gives a confidence boost, because you're going to these places where you don't know it. Like last week I was in Utah at a dinner, we hosted a dinner for 12 buyers, big buyers in the state of Utah, and I was the only female there. I was the only female in the whole room. And which is not unusual. Like I've worked in whiskey, no women. Like when I worked in whiskey, no women. And so that's not unusual, but I think like you do that, and even if you're like, wow, this is the same always, you get home and you're just like, you feel more confident in yourself. And so, yeah, just getting out of your box. Mm-hmm. It's good for you. We should all do it more.
Perfect segue to my next question, which is going to be about selling wine. And obviously there's lots of different ways you're selling wine now. I'm curious, let's start with the Airstream and the idea and then the actual making this happen. You talked about the idea being kind of more of a beer scene, kind of a different vibe. How did you come up with the idea of an Airstream? How did you make it happen? What has been the response so far?
Yeah, so the Airstream actually was my old house. So I lived in it off and on for about 5 years or so, starting in Durango, and then Salt Lake, I lived in it for a little bit. And we brought it out here when we moved, and when it was stored out at West Wind, when we purchased West Wind. And, being an architect, I want to design a really beautiful tasting room one day, a really nice brick and mortar place. But West Wind is such a special place without any of the buildings. And that is it speaks to Sealionne, kind of like bringing it back to the basics. We don't want to overcomplicate things. We want it to be that kind of beer garden type vibe. And just be out in the farm, and you're able to see the tractors going up and down the rows. When you're out there, you're standing on the soil where you're tasting where it came from. And so yeah, that's kind of where it all came from. And I think that the connection to the vineyard will always play a really critical role when down the road when we build our brick and mortar tasting room. It will be a very similar vibe. And so yeah, I think it gets people out there. Like there are multiple really beautiful big glass tasting rooms around here, and which are great, and they sell amazing wine out of them. This is a different experience for people, and I think that it's been really positive for people to come out, and maybe it gets them into this, it's this more approachable way of going to a tasting room. They feel more comfortable, like you're having really, really top tier wine served to you in a way that is, not pretentious at all. And like
camping is
yeah, more camping. It's like, yeah, it's an Airstream trailer. It's like pretty approachable, I would think. So I think from what everybody has said, that they really love it. I wish that we could do it year round, but it gets cold in Oregon, so.
It's pretty chilly.
Yeah.
Our club pickup, it snowed.
It almost snowed, yeah. It was raining sideways, so. Yeah, dealing with the elements is a little bit of a challenge sometimes. It can get really hot here too, so that's kind of a challenge. But overall, it's been a fantastic experience for everybody, and yeah, we love it.
It would only work in Oregon because Oregonians are tough as nails when it comes to weather. Like tons of people showed up to our club pickup, and I was like, oh, it's snowing, no one's gonna come to this. And everybody was there, and we're like, this is awesome. And I was like, oh, I'm so cold. I just want to, like, what? Yeah, I mean, it's so funny. We didn't do it as like a new avant-garde brand paying homage to like the founders of the Valley. But once we started doing it, everybody was like, oh, this is like when Oregon first was founded. And it's so funny. I think, while you were talking, I was thinking, you now hear like Mike Etzel Sr. and Lynn Penner Ash and like all the icons give interviews and starts to be like, well, we just didn't have any money, so this is what we did, when they started. And they can say that now because they have money and they've made a brand that's wildly successful. But I feel like that's what we can say, even though we're not on the wildly successful part yet. We can just be like, hey, like we had wine, we had a beautiful venue, we had a trailer. And that's all we had. Like we had, and we still like, we would love to build something out there. We will build something out there someday. We have incredible plans, but it just isn't in the budget. So it's like, cool. Well, the only way to get money for the budget is to sell wine, and you can't really just like sell it in the parking lot anymore. So it's like, you gotta have somewhere for people to sit. So we did our best to create and we would go out there and camp all the time. So it wasn't like, it is true to like what you and I do out there. And since has led to all these cool collaborations we're doing next year with camping brands and all this stuff that I just I can say that I feel like would have ever thought that it would go there. But yeah, people really like it. They take to it. It's pretty cool. It's gorgeous and very different. And it'll stay forever. Like the concept will stay forever. It'll always be some part of our story, but.
I'm afraid if it's an Airstream and it's gorgeous, it's probably a lot better than the actual trailers they had before.
Yeah.
I've seen some of those trailers. I do like that. It's a perfect homage. I love that. That's amazing. Piper, you brought up earlier the other part of selling wine, which is out in the world, away from the tasting room, away from the vineyard. Tell me about that experience for you. What have been the challenges? What have been the successes? What has been the growth for you in selling wine in the marketplace?
So Privé is not sold in the marketplace out of the tasting space, but Sealionne is, and Sealionne was designed with that goal in mind. So it is a brand that we distribute, and we, I think we both naively went in. We're like, yeah, if we make the wine, they'll sell it, and it'll be great. That's not how it works. Actually, it's really hard to find a partner, and then once you find a partner, it's a lot of blind negotiation at the beginning because we didn't really know. There's a lot of logistics and a lot of other moving parts that until you start doing it, you don't know. I will say we have some really good friends in the industry that have been really instrumental in kind of helping us guide us through those, that have been doing it, for longer than us, have more partners out in the world. And so, and have been so awesome to let me call them in the middle of the night with freaking out about whatever I don't understand on a contract. And so that has been really, really helpful. And I think it's just really fun to be able to go somewhere new and have people get excited about Oregon wine in general. I think it's really easy when you're here and you see maybe foot traffic is down in the tasting rooms, or there's the pandemic or whatever. It's very easy to be like, oh, Oregon wine just isn't selling, or the world isn't into alcohol anymore, whatever the cliche thing is. But then you leave and people are so excited, and Oregon wine is actually exploding in markets all over the world. And so, to go somewhere and have people come to me, a bartender in a restaurant in Brooklyn or something, and be like, oh, these are my favorite wineries in the Willamette Valley, and this is what I love about the Willamette Valley. It's like, holy shit, you said it right. That's awesome. And so I think for me, that's been really a critical part in being, it's exciting. You come back rejuvenated and inspired, and you're like, hell yeah, let's make more of this and keep talking about it. And so I think that's been my experience in the market. It's not easy, but critical, and also really fun. it's actually really fun.
Rewarding, yeah.
Yeah, it's rewarding. You get to go to cool places and meet really cool people, and then you make friends with all the best people in every town, which is like the hospitality people. So whenever you go back to the town, you're just eating all the best food. You have access to all the best bartender. Like you have just all the stuff you want to do and hang out with. You can find them easier.
Let's look ahead to the future a little bit for both of the brands and for kind of the vineyard as well. You talked about a brick and mortar space at some point in the future. What else are you looking ahead to? Where is the growth for you? What are you excited to do that you haven't done yet?
Well, I'll let Piper answer the.
Exactly what you're gonna say.
What's that?
Go ahead.
Well, I would love, like we were saying before, to have a brick and mortar location. I'd love for it to be out at West Wind, or there might be something else that a better site. I can't imagine a better site than that. But yeah, that's the goal for the tasting room side. Privé, I think, is going to stay relatively the same. Like we're going to, it will always be located here. And so yeah, it's kind of like just keep making that wine and honoring that legacy that we were given. And Sealionne, there's just a lot of changes that we're able to do, and my mind spins all the time of like, what interesting things could we build, and how do we create the same excitement and approachability of the Airstream tasting room in a place that is enclosed or can be enclosed and air conditioned and heated and all that stuff. And so yeah.
Put wine and like on the floor, and it doesn't, you don't have to worry about it like exploding.
Yeah.
That would be nice.
So yeah, I think it's going to be really fun in the future, quite a ways, but yeah, it's a nice point in the future that we can aim to. And so yeah, it'll be an evolving thing of what we could do out there. So yeah, I'm excited about it.
Yeah, I think 30,000 foot view, like hopefully to like the 8 to 10 year plan would be like every winemaker I feel like dreams about building out their own winery. I'm no different. We're making 4,500 cases in 1,000 case space. That is just not really set up to make wine. And so like I dream about all the time. And I also think like what a beautiful, beautiful thing, a legacy that you and I can have together. Since you're an architect, an incredible architect, and we can create something that is wholly our own, which is really special. So that's like long-term plan. And then something that I'm really excited about in the next couple of years is to watch Sealionne grow. We're on our fourth vintage. Is that right? Fourth vintage? Yep. The first vintage was 50 cases, so I don't really count that one. We're on our third vintage. And we have now been selling wine. This is our second year out in market with the brand. Out in market with a tasting room, like selling the wine in any way. And we're just now starting to see so much cool traction. People starting to recognize the brand starting to sell well. It's just really awesome to start to see this thing that you've put your heart and soul in start to move and snowball in the right direction. And so I think I'm really excited to watch it continue down the hill. And we have some really cool brand collaborations coming up next year. And I didn't peg myself as someone who would be really excited about that kind of stuff, but it's actually awesome. It's really cool to be able to call someone up that's not in your industry, that is like one of the best in their industries, that are pushing the envelope and creating different things and willing to try something that is totally out of the ballpark of what people have been doing. And so I think for me, that's what I work alone a lot. And so to be able to collaborate with another person is really special. We also have a full-time cellar member now, and for me, just continuing to foster that is really special. She's amazing, and I find a lot of joy in that for myself, and mentoring someone who is a lot like I was in my early 20s and just trying to figure out my place in the wine world. So yeah, those are my things I'm excited about.
Taking the same 30,000 foot view and looking at the organ industry a bit more broadly, I'm curious about, obviously you came here at a very interesting time. It took a while to get to see the industry in any meaningful way. I'm curious about what you have, as you started to kind of see the industry, what you have learned about the wines we make here, the people making them, and the changes you've seen, even in a short time, to the Oregon industry. What does it look like now in 2025, and where is it going?
Ooh. Well, I think 2025 has been a really hard year for the Oregon wine industry, and not outwardly. I mean, like I was saying earlier, people are starting to understand Oregon wine. They're starting to know Oregon wine. They're starting to appreciate and love Oregon wine, and Oregon wine is standing there on the shelf, next to the greats. And so I think in terms of what the world knows about Oregon wine is we're at an all-time high, and it's just going to keep going. But here at home, there are a lot of challenges that are facing the Oregon wine industry. Property value is pretty low right now. There's an extreme glut of fruit. People are having to pull out fruit, and everyone's trying to scale back. Wine sales in general across the world is starting to feel the repercussions of the backlog that happened in COVID, and so it's just this kind of ripple effect. In fact, someone that I went to a lecture, and the guy who does the Silicon Valley Bank, yeah, he was giving a talk, and he had a really good analogy, and he said, it's like a train where the engine is the consumer, and the consumer is starting to take off, and now the bars and restaurants are hooking up, and then the distributors, and then the winemakers, and then the growers, but it doesn't all, the consumer doesn't start driving the train, and the caboose just goes too. It takes a long time for the energy and the power to hit the starting point, if you will, which is the vineyards. And so, I think in the immediate future, I think that there will be a lot of change, and there'll be a lot of flux, and there'll be a lot of the vineyard landscape will change a lot. I think that there will be less grapes in the next year or two, and I think that there might be some more consolidation, but then just like any big rainstorm, the rainbow will come out at the end, and I think that we're not that far away from Oregon finding its footing, from Oregon, the outside world loving Oregon so much to catch up, and for us to be able to feel that benefit here at home. So I think Oregon has an incredibly bright future. I feel so lucky that I get to be here at such an exciting time when everybody is starting to get so excited about Oregon wines. And we don't have to teach people how to say Willamette as much.
Yeah.
Starting to be like more of a less common thing.
The whole Willamette damn it thing really worked well.
Yeah. It really worked well. Now we're really working on Chehalem. That's next. But, one at a time.
Anything else for the two of you in your future that you're looking ahead to, whether with wine and the brands or otherwise? Anything else exciting on your horizons?
Lots of, we have trips coming up. We have lots of fun things. Yeah.
We want to start a family.
Yeah.
So that's really exciting, mainly just so that people stop asking. No, I'm just kidding. No, we want to start a family. We want to, just like the Wrights and the Hammonds and all of those who have stewarded the land before us, we want to raise a family here and teach them the value of $1. No, teach them how to farm grapes if they want to learn. And I think it would have been awesome to grow up on a vineyard. Yeah. I grew up at a cattle ranch, which was really cool, but not like you didn't make, if they want to do something cool, we can blow stuff up in the winery, and that's super fun.
Yeah.
I didn't get to have that as a kid, so I think just passing on the value of land and trying to teach another generation where your food comes from is really important.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Last question for the two of you. To this point, what is your proudest accomplishment, biggest achievement? What do you look back on with the most pride?
Marrying me. I'm just kidding. Just kidding. Don't say that.
Yes, that's one of them. I'd say being able to get kind of thrown into this world and we came in at a really interesting time, and like Piper said, every year has had its monumental challenges, and we have been able to not only survive those, but come out on top. And so I'm really proud of that, and proud that we have done it together. So I think, yeah, like Piper was saying, with if you're able to survive these really major challenges, it makes you more confident about just everything else that you're doing in your life. So yeah, we've had a lot of those challenges, and we've been able to work through every one of them. So yeah, I'm most proud of that.
I think for me it's twofold. It's coming to a place where you don't know anyone and starting a business. And then I feel like now we have like such a good group of humans in our corner, and we like are proactive in our community. And I think those things, we've really like created a safe, supportive space in a place where we didn't know anyone. And I'm really proud of that. And I'm also really proud of the fact that it is equally the hardest thing I've ever done and think I will ever do, and the most rewarding thing, running a business, in this case, like basically two businesses with your spouse. It's like, yeah, it's really challenging, but it's also like, it's so cool. Like, I love that I get to work with you every day. And yeah, I mean, I think you ask there's a lot of other couples that run wine brands, and yeah, it's incredibly rewarding, and we get to like have this product at the end of the day that we made as a team. And I think especially like for branding and for like life, it's just really cool. It's like a great honor to get to work with you every day.
You too, darling.
Yeah, I'm gonna gag.
Sweet. I love it. All right, all the questions that I have for the two of you. Anything I didn't ask that I should have? Anything we didn't talk about today that you were hoping to talk about?
I don't think so. Yeah.
And thank you both for taking the time to share with us again.
Thank you.
Thanks for catching us up on all the events of the last few years, and congratulations on all the new projects and successes. We'll let you off the hook.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.